MC Gunrobo Walther P-38, a figure from Takara's Microchange series, is the toy Hasbro would import and release as the original Generation 1 Megatron. As the Microchange name suggests, it turned into a fairly believable Walther P-38 pistol, which back then wasn't an issue, as US toy gun laws weren't as strict, but now? We were lucky to get the likes of Classics and reveal the Shield Megatron, the latter being the closest Hasbro's gotten to properly recreating the Decepticon leader in both modes. Takara Tomy? Different story, since such laws in Japan are somewhat more lax. On top of reissuing the original toy, the Masterpiece line has produced 2 G1 Megatrons, not counting redecos. 2007's MP-5, which got lukewarm reception at best, and a decade later, MP-36. The first Masterpiece Megatron was from a time when the range simply tried to capture the general essence of the character, without drawing inspiration from any particular media. However, MP-5's infamy can be attributed to its 12-day design span, resulting in a misproportioned robot, with one hell of a transformation. MP-36's design, on the other hand, is mostly based on the animated series, and just from looks, it is a vast improvement. No scrawny limbs here, he's stocky and trim in the appropriate spots to convey that he is an all-powerful conqueror. Signature traits include his bucket helmet, the gun barrel resting beside his right-hand side. Due to both the transformation and a later feature, the chest is merely sculpted to resemble the gun slide, but doesn't actually become it. He bears his usual abdominal details in the appropriate colours, albeit in translucent plastic. Plus his boots are properly chunky, even though, unlike Classics Megatron, they're actually formed from the halves of the gun's hand grip. We'll soon see how they pulled that off. Even the more minor sculpted shapes and greebling, such as on the chest and inner sides of his boots, are pretty spot on. Then there's the deco. It's mostly cartoon accurate, but thankfully the multiple greys used have a metallic sheen to them. You also have black and red, though the latter colour should make up that whole section of his arm. Still, all this saves the toy from being a major borefest. Shifting gears for a moment, the G1 figure was sold in chrome for the Hasbro and later Takara releases, whereas he was initially grey in Japan. Also, on both the American and future Japanese editions, the inner arms and legs were done in red, and the chromed chest plate sports what I've seen described as robotic chest hairs. Lastly, most, if not all versions, sport tampografts. I bring this up because the redeco of this figure, MP-36 Plus, is an amalgamation of all these things. Don't expect me to get it, but I can understand the appeal for those who own the G1 Megatron toy. One thing you can replicate from that figure, even with the original MP-36, is repositioning the gun barrel so that it's beside his right hip. Granted, he can't quite shoot straight, but it's still a thing you can do. MP-36 is articulated to hell and back. The head is on an expressive ball joint that allows both forward and back and side-to-side motion. The neck platform even hinges forward so he can look down further, though it raises the kibble attached to it. His shoulders ratchet both a full 360 vertically and 90 degrees in and out. They also worked in hinges for them to butterfly forward slightly. Then there are the bicep swivels, followed by elbows that bend as much as you could reasonably expect. The wrists swivel, not all the way around mind you, but the range is good enough. His thumb and fingers are hinged, though the last 3 fingers are unified. The fingers also hinge at the knuckles. The waist turns a full 360 and even has an ab crunch that's not even required for transformation. Folding up the hip panels allows for full forward range motion in the hips. The backwards range is not as good. The thighs swivel about 90 degrees either way, the knees ratchet over 90. Lastly, his die-cast feet ratchet back and forth and rock side to side. So yeah, Megatron excels at posability, especially with the aid of a certain accessory which I'll get to, right after everything else. MP-36 comes with the key to Vector Sigma, different from the one included with Hasbro Asia's re-release of Masterpiece Optimus Prime, the clone control helmet from the G1 cartoon episode A Prime Problem, His Energon mace from the pilot, made up of 3 pieces, the nozzle, one of 2 chains, and the mace itself. Simply slide off one of his hands, then slide on the nozzle. The first of these chains allows him to flail the mace mid-air via multiple hinges. The other better resembles an actual chain. Then there's his arsenal from The Transformers the Movie. The Energon dagger, with a removable blade that doubles as a blast effect part for the second weapon, the laser pistol. As has become increasingly common with this line, MP-36 has alternate faces. Outside of the neutral expression, you also get angry yelling and evil laughter. As you switch between faces, you'll notice his internal schematics, seen when he was reformatted into Galvatron. But the film references continue, as the 4th face is also accompanied by an alternate chestplate, both referencing the inflicted damage from Megatron and Prime's climactic showdown. To remove the chestplate, simply slide it up, revealing robotic detailing underneath. MP-36 Plus replaces the damaged face with one that matches the Generation 1 figure. Next up is the fusion cannon, which unlike MP5's isn't stupidly large, though he can only wield it on his right arm. The cannon has a sound box, a first for the line, powered by 2 LR44 batteries. To activate it, press the round grey button up top, though which sound you get depend on the setting of the red switch nearby. All the way forward you get a blaster noise. Halfway, you get one of a series of phrases from Megatron's Japanese voice actor, the late Shizuo Kato. These are actually recycled from the Japanese reissue of G1 Galvatron, a character played by the same actor in that country. And all the way back, you get the iconic transformation noise. In both directions. What, you thought we were done here? There's still the silencer and stock accessories, and this is where the G1 toy homages pick up. In this mode, the silencer forms a shoulder cannon for Megatron, and what's more, the fusion cannon can slot onto its barrel, resulting in a face gun, obligatory Age of Extinction lockdown comment. The stock, meanwhile, can convert into a flight stand, with this post plugging into Megatron's... To be honest, I don't use this much, as I feel I'll break the peg, but it's still cool for posing the figure mid-air. Alternatively, it can combine with the silencer and fusion cannon, resulting in this mega cannon with flip-out handles and 2 ratcheted hinges, plus a swivel near the top to display it as you wish. Alright, real talk. Despite intentionally reserving MP-36 for a milestone, there were some things about it I was not looking forward to, one of them being the transformation. Not because it's complex, that's the norm for the line, but there are parts that must be handled carefully due to how they're constructed. For starters, there have been reports of paint scraping due to the lack of clearance between parts, such as how the chest is pressed right up against his face, no matter which one you've used. More nerve-wrackingly, the gun barrel is held in place by a single pin. Outside of swiveling it into place, I'd avoid using it for leverage or support, but even I forget sometimes. For another tip, I recommend loosening the screw at the back of the waist, as that'll make pulling down the hips much easier. This isn't to say it's impossible to get used to the transformation. It just seems daunting at first as, excluding what I've mentioned, it relies on a pretty high parts count, with lots of panels folding in, out, rotating around, etc. If you want step-by-step guides, I recommend checking out the Lazy Eyebrows or MGO's transformation videos linked in the description. Though not licensed, MP-36 still turns into a pistol resembling the Walther P-38. Pretty damn well, actually. From the basic outline, to even the small realistic details such as a front sight, safety catch, and hammer, it's a safe bet we won't be seeing an American release anytime soon. Also, in keeping with the cartoon, the deco has been reduced to a simple grey and black. I gotta say, the lengths they went through to get this out of a show-accurate robot makes my head hurt, honestly. For instance, save for the shin panels that make up most of the trigger guard, the lower legs collapse on a vertical axis to form the gun's hand grip so that it's not too thick. Admittedly, they cheated in places. The general character design has the gun slide form the torso, as well as the hammer halves ending up on his shoulders, whereas on this toy, both are faked. Though the cel-animated inspired Decepticon logo used in both modes helps with the illusion. Plus, it's not like the gun itself is flawless. This plate up top doesn't want to peg in, the profile appears to slope downwards towards the barrel, to say nothing of the numerous transformation seams. If MP5 has anything over this, it's a cleaner alt mode, as well as being done in silver, but I digress. However, in the end, I'm still impressed. We reviewers are nitpicky f***ers, but at times, you've got to respect the designers for what they can pull off. It's a fairly realistically sized pistol, much more so compared to MP5. The hammer, safety catch, and trigger all work, though the last of these, while spring-loaded, doesn't click like on Classics Megatron. On top of all this, the fusion cannon, now a scope, silencer, and stock come back into play, as they can attach to the gun in homage to both the G1 toy and cartoon. The configuration itself is based on the modified Walther pistol featured in the 60s spy drama The Man from U.N.C.L.E. However, as others have reported, the silencer plugs in so tight that not only can it lead to more paint chipping on the gun barrel, it's a shot in the groin to remove, especially if it's in all the way. I repeat, the gun barrel is only held in by one pin. And no, rotating the silencer barrel doesn't seem to make a difference as far as I can tell. Again, I don't use these accessories much, but for those that do, your best bet is to sand the pole inside the silencer gradually, that's what slides inside the barrel, until you get a reasonable fit, and even then, I still wouldn't plug it in all the way. Finally, depending on where you bought this, you'll also get a collector's coin stored inside a cardboard sleeve, which, as is often the case, resembles the character's chest/torso area. I'm just gonna cut to the chase. Transformers masterpiece MP-36 Megatron gets a gold medal, if only just. I know some would rank him higher, and frankly I wouldn't blame you, as he has some of the best engineering this line has to offer, and that's saying something. From a show-accurate and generally fantastic-looking robot with all the articulation you could want, to a believable, proportionate and well-detailed gun, plus some neat accessories that homage multiple source materials. However, for as much as this set has going for it, the problems with paint chipping, the silencer plugging in too tight for alt mode, and parts of the gun not tabbing in properly cannot and should not be ignored, especially for a high-end collector's item. But if you're willing to bite the bullet and either ignore or work around these setbacks, you'll otherwise have one of the top-tier figures of G1 Megatron out there. That is, for the most part, truly worthy of the Masterpiece title. And that's a wrap on video 400. You know, it occurred to me while making this one that I've been at this for 15 years now, with a few hiatuses, but still. I guess it's easy to miss when you're distracted by how much of a shit show this decade is turning out to be. I don't exactly know how much longer I'll be doing this, or how much I'll get done in the time that I have, but let it be known that it is your continued support that makes all of this worthwhile, and I'm never going to forget that. Thank you.